In Guild Wars 2, we love simple, powerful builds. And in this video today, we're going to go over the Berserker Warrior. Across the board, whether it's in convergences, CMs, raids, this build absolutely rocks. But before we get started, if you all like and enjoy Guild Wars 2 content, especially builds, consider hitting that beautiful like and subscribe button, and let's get started. Now here is how the video is going to break down. There's going to be timestamps below so you can jump to any section. We're first going to start off with our traits. Now going over our traits, starting at the top, and we'll move to the bottom. Our first line we're going to be picking up is Strength. And the first thing we're going to get when we unlock Strength is Reckless Impact. This obviously isn't a focus, but when we dodge, it's going to do a little damage, give us some might. That's okay. For our first choice here, we're going with Peak Performance. So we're going to get a flat 5% more damage, but when we use a physical skill, which we will have one in our kit, it's going to bump up to 10% more damage. Next up, we get Building Momentum. Our burst skills restore some endurance. Not really anything to write home about. For the second column here, we have some choices. So I'm going with Great Fortitude. So based off of our power, we're going to have increased vitality and ferocity. Mostly focusing on that ferocity. Ferocity is how hard your critical hits strike for, so pretty big chunk of damage. Also in this line, we have Forceful Greatsword. We are going to be focusing on the Greatsword as our main weapon, so this is a great choice too. Next up, we have Pinnacle of Strength. Might Applied now grants more power. This is just more DPS. We should be having a lot of might, either in solo or group play. And then for the last column here, we're going with Berserker's Power. So depending on how much adrenaline we use, we get a nice chunky bit of increased damage. And for us and for this build, we're always going to be, looking for those maximum stacks. So 15% more damage. Now moving on to our second trait line, we're going with Tactics. We're going to be getting Marching Orders. Periodically gain soldiers' focus. Hitting a burst skill expends soldiers' focus to grant might to nearby allies. Also stability in this case here. For our first choice here, I'm going with Leg Specialist, mostly for the second part of this trait, where deal increased strike damage to foes that are affected by a movement impairing condition. And the one we're going to be focusing on is Immobilize. Next up, we have Empowerment. Deal increased strike damage for every boon on you. Boons they're in great supply in Guild Wars 2, so this is just more raw damage. And then for the middle column here, I would either go with Warrior's Cunning or Empower Your Allies. Both of these are very good. And then we have Mending Might here. So every time we grant might to an ally, it's going to heal you. This is a great little bit of sustain for yourself. And then for the last column here, I think you have two choices, either Martial Cadence or Failing Strength. Failing Strength is probably going to be the go-to. If you notice that in group play, you're not hitting the maximum amount of might stacks, which is 25. So if that's not happening, I would put on Failing Strength. If not, and you're good on might, maybe just stick with Martial Cadence. Alright, and now for the last line, we're going with Berserker, and the main feature here is now we're going to have a Rage skill for our Adrenaline, which is going to turn our burst skills into Primal Burst skills. So you can see down here with my Greatsword, I have the normal burst skill, which is Arcing Slice, but really we're going to be focusing on the F2 here, which is going to send us into that Berserk, that Rage state, and it's going to transform our Arcing Slice here to Arc Divider. Now for our first column choice here, we're going with Smash Brawler. Every time we use our Primal Burst, it's going to extend the duration of our Berserk state, but while we're in our Berserk state, our critical hit chance is going to be increased by 15%. Essentially, this build is going to have 100% crit chance, which is a beautiful thing for a DPS player. Now, we're also going to get Burst of Aggression, gain Burst of Speed when entering into Berserk mode. It's going to be that quickness, that super speed, and some fury as well. And then for the second column here, I think you have two choices. You can either go with Blood Reaction, which is going to be a bonus to our ferocity and our condition damage, or you can go with something like Heat the Soul. This is probably the one you're going to want to go with in group play because grant boons to nearby allies when you hit an enemy with a burst skill. That's going to be our Arc Divider, and the boon that we're going to be giving them is Quickness. This is a quickness DPS build. Next up, you get Fatal Frenzy. Berserk mode increases your power and condition damage, so 300 more power. We're going to be focusing on power. And then for the last column here, Bloody Roar. Deal increased strike damage while in Berserk mode and gain resistance when entering Berserk mode. Really, it's that increased strike damage, just an extra like 10% more damage while we're berserking. And with this build here, we're essentially going to have 100% uptime while being berserk, and it's going to be very easy to maintain. Now really quick, moving on to the armor section, we'll try to make this quick, but we are going with the Berserker set here. I know we kind of always stick with that one, but that's because when you look at the armor sets that are available as far as the stats, not a lot of them focus on, of course, you know, all the DPS stats here. So slim pickings, and we really want to focus this time around on power and ferocity, because intrinsically with our traits and then being in that berserk state, our crit chance is going to be really high. You know, stack on top of that having fury as one of the boons. So something like assassins I maybe would avoid. And our choices are also reflected in our rune choice here. We're going with the scholar runes, again, power and ferocity, but if you don't have these, something like the pact, this can work as well. But anything that's focusing on your power and then the ferocity on top of it's just the cherry on top when it comes to your rune sets. Our weapon is going to be the greatsword, same stats, also for our amulets and rings and stuff over there as well. But the sigils that, you know, you want to focus on, something like Sigil of Air, every time we critically strike, we're going to send down some lightning. Sigil of Force, this is kind of just default. Same goes for our second weapon set. Now, when it comes to your second weapon set, I have dagger and shield. I'm probably going to take this off and put on spear instead, but axe as well can be really good. But I just wanted you guys to know that we're going to be focusing on the greatsword here, and that's just going to do plenty for us as far as in solo open world or even in a group setting. Staying on your greatsword, yeah, not a problem. But that is the stats and everything out of the way. We are also using the Relic of the Thief here, just in case, because I usually forget about the relic here. I feel like most people do. But yeah, that's the stats out of the way. Let's move on to the weapon choice as far as why we're picking the greatsword, kind of the rotation we're going to go through, and then our utility picks, and then we can get to the gameplay section, which I'm very, very excited for. Now, moving to the weapon in the utility section, we're just going to go through it while we're just doing some combat. Our chain with our greatsword here, pretty standard. Going to put on some vulnerability stacks, and that's pretty good. Next up, I want to talk about our 3 skill here, which is our whirlwind attack. This is actually a pretty good bit of damage, but also makes you highly mobile. Then follow that up with your blade trail here, and this is where we pick up that immobilize. And remember, because of our traits, we get a little bit of extra damage against enemies that have that immobilize condition on. Other than that, we have rush as well. This is a good bit of different damage, but also mobility. Highly mobile with the greatsword. Now, something I left out was the 2 skilled. This is the 100 blades. This is your big hitter here. This is where you kind of put your dick on the table with your warrior, and you just go to town. Chop, 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 chop. Lot of damage there. This is definitely, the 100 blades is kind of what you want to set up, especially when we have the traits that say bump up our damage when we use a physical ability. So moving to our utility section really quick, we got Blood Reckoning here. Now this is a rage ability. This comes again with Berserker, and the biggest feature with the Blood Reckoning here is the fact that this will reset the cooldown on our primal burst. We'll go into that rotation a little bit later on. Other than that, we're using Bull's Charge. This is that physical ability, and it'll proc peak performance, which again, 10% more damage. That's really good. Again, that's kind of the pairing we want to go for, is either Bull's Charge and then feed into our primal burst, or Bull's Charge and then feed into 100 blades, because those are kind of our heavy hitters. Other than that, Signet of Might. This is just for a little bit extra power. Don't really ever need to activate this. Not really all that useful in PvE. And then next up, we have Outrage here. This is another rage ability, and this is also our stun break. I just got nuked by a bunch of bombs, and we can't see anything. We'll see if anybody picks me up. Yay, thank you, Guild Wars 2 community. Anyways, so we have Outrage here, and this is our stun break, but not only does it stun break us, it also builds up our adrenaline and extends our time while we're in our berserk stance. I think also, yes, our Blood Reckoning, our heal ability, also extends our berserk duration as well, which we haven't gone into yet or in our gameplay right now. We're kind of just sticking to the standard stuff. Last up is our elite ability, and this is Headbutt. This is a great Defiance bar breaker. This is our opener as well. It's going to stun us for a second, but that's okay. This will also extend our berserk duration as well. So these are kind of just the things you want to be using off cooldown while we are berserking, and we go into that rage form, which is our F2. But using Headbutt here will actually fill up our berserk bar immediately. So let's see if we can show that off real quick, and then we'll jump into the gameplay section where we can kind of slow things down and go through the rotation here. But you see here, we Headbutt, and boom, we're ready to rage. So that's kind of the opener there and why we're going with headbutt. But that is our skill choices out of the way. Let's go ahead and head to the gameplay section where we'll slow things down and kind of go through the rotation. Oh, can't forget my loot. Lots of chests, lots of loot. We love it. Got inventory management in this game. Am I right? And headed to the aerodrome where we will show off kind of the rotation here. We'll go with an average hitbox. Let's give them 4 million health so we can really talk about what we're doing. Spawn your golem. Great. Now, before we get into this this rotation, I just want you to know, guys, this is like the build that if I take a long break from the game and I'm coming back, I'm trying to learn, I'm like, okay, what does everything do again? This is the build I can just go back to. I'm like, oh yeah, this is the benchmark. This is kind of the foundation. I'm like, okay, buildcraft, it needs to be somewhere in the ballpark as this build for like every profession, as far as how efficient and easy this build is to use. Now, starting off with your rotation here, we already talked about it, but we're going to use headbutt. This is going to put us in our rage stance. I think I was just calling it berserk. The skill's called berserk, but we're in a rage stance. Then we want to follow up with bull's charge. That is going to give us our peak performance. This lasts for 6 seconds. So we quickly want to use arc divider, then pop blood reckoning. Arc divider is back up again, and then we can just start swinging with either 100 blades. You can do a whirlwind through them, throw your sword, rush back into them, use arc divider again. Remember to kind of always pop outrage whenever it's up, again, just because it's extending our rage duration. It's probably going to fall off with us right there because we were kind of yapping while we're going through it, but that's kind of the loop there. And then again, our headbutt will be back up after that, and then every time arc divider is up here, pop it. It's going to give you quickness. It's going to give you a little bit of might, but your team, if you're in a group play, is going to love you because you're providing that quickness on top of just really chunky bits of DPS. And it's not even just single target, it's AoE as well. That's why in the open world, this build is fantastic because of how mobile we are with whirlwind attack there, or 3, and then 5 is a charge, a rush, and then we also have bull's charge as well. So we can zip around from target to target quickly and efficiently. So again, the rotation you kind of want to go with here is headbutt, go into your berserk, use your arc divider, pop your heal skill, do it again, 100 blades. You see how quickly our adrenaline is building up, but our arc divider here is still on cooldown. Again, use that every time. And then really it's just after that, just go through your greatsword abilities when they're off cooldown. Very simple. This is your heavy hitter though, arc divider. Pop this every single time. If you can, always try to set it up with bull's charge again for that little bit of more damage, 10%, pretty good. In a perfect world, you'll be able to headbutt. This will proc just in time. Go in arc divider, bull's charge, use our heal ability, comes back up. I did that out of order, but still, it does a lot of damage. But that's kind of the rotation overall. Very easy, very simple to play, not really spammy. And again, we're just sticking on the greatsword here. There's going to be time where if you have a long fight, like a boss fight, you'll be hitting them for a long time, and you'll notice that everything's kind of on cooldown, and you don't have another rage or berserk or your arc divider to use. That's when you'd want to switch to your weapon, and then that rage ability will actually be off cooldown. And same thing as arc divider, where it'll provide quickness to everybody around you, and it'll hit for a chunky bit of damage as well. So if you really want to get fancy, once you get comfortable with the greatsword, that's when you kind of work in that weapon swap. But like that, let's knock this golem down to 1,000,000 HP and see how much damage we can do with all of our boons on. All right, got our boons. Again, in a group setting, you should have all your boons. And if you're not maxing out those might stacks, remember, I would switch to the phalanx strike with our phalanx with our traits. Help get those might stacks up to 25 again in group settings. But other than that, you are going to be providing quickness to the party, which is amazing. So let's go ahead and see if we can get to, again, benchmark for me, 20k damage overall. And I think we're in a good spot here because really you want to be focusing on mechanics with boss fights. But in a group setting, if you can do above 20k, you're above like 95, maybe 99% of the community. Again, this is a really, really simple rotation. Let's dial it in. We need a little bit of food, and let's try this out. We're gonna hit him with impair. We're gonna run into him with our face, and let's focus up. Right now is when we want a weapon swap, but I said we're just going to stick on the greatsword. Make sure this is super simple for everybody to follow. I'm going to wait for that. Set up our 100 blades there. And I mentioned it earlier, but yeah, look, we're staying in our Berserk stance the entire time. And this just feels so snappy to play. What do we get there? 24k, almost 25. I bet if we worked in a weapon swap rotation in there, we could easily get that above 25k. But yeah, that's a really simple way to play, especially just Warrior here, Berserker. Very simple, very effective. You're providing quickness to your party, might to your party, but you're also just an absolute monster when it comes to AoE damage and single target damage. And we're not really using that many buttons. This is a very fluid rotation here and kind of setup we have going on. The only thing that really locks us down is when we use our headbutt, and that stuns us for a second, and then 100 blades. You know, we're locked in our spot right there. Other than that, super mobile. A lot of fun. This is a very simple setup here. Works perfect in group settings because you are providing that DPS and quickness style, that roll for fractals, raids, convergences. So yeah, this is one of my favorite builds. Very simple. Again, kind of just a benchmark for all of my other builds. But yes, that is the video, y'all. This is kind of one I wanted to show off for a while, but I thought we'd get some Guardian things out of the way. But yeah, this is the build. Let me know how you guys like to play your Berserkers. There's also the condition side of this elite specialization that you can build into that we didn't mess around with it too much. I still just like doing power damage stuff or power DPS in this game. But yeah, if you made it this far, I appreciate the hell out of you, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.